Hey,
I
what?
just called her and I went and turned the water off. It was a geyser in the middle of there. It wasn't hurting much, but I went and turned it off, and
Collected.
I get water calls every day, so it's okay.
They reached out and said, can someone, they said the house.
I'm encroaching.
Well, and it's funny, you sent that and I started talking to you, then about 15 minutes later, my phone just started going bang, bang, bang.
If you had a chance to read it.
Not yet.
No.
What'd you do, Paul?
Gary, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, that works. Awesome.
We are remote tonight. And it's working.
It's working. Yeah, we do have internet at Martin's Cove today. So hopefully it lasts the meeting.
There you go.
At Martin's Cove, how cool.
He has a cool job.
He does have a cool job.
He's actually coming to speak to my ward next week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I told whoever is over home, I'm like, there's this guy that's from work.
That's awesome.
Can you not turn your mics off? No. I guess
Okay.
it'd be more the idea of how much of that.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. The time is now 6 o'clock. Welcome to the South Weaver Planning Commission meeting. Grateful for everyone's attendance this evening. Just a quick roll call here. We have Commissioner Boatwright, who is joining us via Zoom. And then within the chambers here in City Hall, we have Commissioner Johnson, myself, and I completely blanked. Holy cow. Commissioner Davis, thank you. Holy, good start, good start. So with that, we are minus Commissioner Losi. Hopefully she'll be joining us here soon. But if we'll go ahead and get started here. So I'll lead us in a pledge of allegiance. So if you don't mind standing and repeating the pledge after me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We'll go ahead and open the public comment portion of our meeting. And I'll just read this portion from the agenda. Please be respectful, follow the guidelines below. Comments will be accepted by from our inbox for public comment. We do have one public comment that was received. So we'll read that as part of the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. When you come to the mic, please state your name and address. Direct your comments to the entire commission and note that the Planning Commission will not speak directly or respond directly during the public comment period. We'll go ahead and Commissioner Losi has joined us. Not to call you out, it was Paul's idea.
No problem. I apologize. I literally was driving down here from Bear Lake, so you're welcome.
Well done, well done.
I was trying to decide between Bear Lake or you just got off the plane from Florida.
Yeah, I'll
Right.
open for cover.
Terry George, 7825 South, 2000 East. You know the city, you know the zip code. So I just wanted to stop in and I'll apologize right up front. I'm going to be leaving right after this. As you know, most of the time I'll sit through the meetings, but I'm on granddad duty tonight. So got to have priorities. So I want to approach this from three perspectives. We're talking about, as you guys are considering zoning changes and developments and things that are coming in, and the wonderful families that own a lot of the property here and are trying to get ready to sell their property. As everybody knows, I'm pretty vocal and opinionated about things, but the one thing I do stand by is what do the people really want? So I want to make it clear, if it were up to TG George only, and Blair and I have actually had this conversation, he knows exactly what I'm going to say, I'd want to leave it farmland because I love it, but it's not my property and that's not what the citizens want. Now, if I own the property and I wanted to try and sell it personally, I'd be doing it as half acre to 1 acre lots and doing it at a gated community because right now, nobody can get into a home. Nobody can find good size homes and there are people looking and the real estate market is on fire. Supply and demand is going crazy. And I would look at that and go, strike while the iron's hot, maximize my buck. I think you could probably get more for an acre of land if you sold it up to housing development versus commercial or anything else. Because the other thing is we're not a big commercial draw. We have to accept that fact. But that's if I were the developer or the landowner, and I'm not. So I'm here to remind everybody that a lot of citizens, I want to say it was over 500 or more, put a lot of thought and effort into developing a general plan for this city. And if there's two overarching things that came out of that, is that they want to keep this place as small as possible. So we don't always have to go to the highest R when we're looking at residential. Okay, that's not what they want. It's not what TG wants. It's what the citizens said they wanted. The other thing they made very clear is that they will accept some commercial, but they want it to be really smart commercial that's not going to put wear and tear on our infrastructure and is going to be a good fit to the small town charm that we have here. So that's the only thing I wanted to do is just to remind you, because it can get really caught up in the moments as we're looking at zoning changes and everything. And just please remember, that's what the citizens said they wanted. And that's not what I want. TG George, I told you what I want, leave it farmland. It's not what I want. If I was the owner of a property, I'd be doing 1 acre lots. But it's what the citizens want. And that's all I'm asking. And I know you all do a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, TG.
I apologize, but I'm not.
Paul Sturm, 2527 Deer Run Drive. My public comments are on agenda item 7, packet page 45 and 57. Action on rezone request of 1801,079 acres from A to CH to CH, from A and CH to CH. For Stevens exit located northeast corner, 475 and 6650 South. Applicant Carter Randall of CNN Property Holdings. I have some confusion whether or not this topic in the PC meeting is a public hearing or not. So my presentation on this talk during the public comment is being made during the public comment portion of the meeting. On 10 June 21, the PC meeting agenda showed agenda item as an action on a rezone request, not a public hearing, although Ms. Fippen's summary document stated that. I did not discover this difference until late last night, so I wasn't able to notify anyone about the confusion I had. I believe that Carter Randall appears to be wasting South Weber City's time because he appears to have failed on several fronts to provide the information requested by South Weber City on many occasions. In particular, this is by not providing a concept plan drawing. This is too crucial of a piece of property to South Weber to not have a plan developed properly, and for South Weber City to just trust a developer to do what is right for the city and not be hoodwinked as has happened in the past. As stated in the South Weber City Planner summary, the applicant does not provide any new information requested by South Weber. The City Council and Planning Commission have in the past requested that rezone applications come forward with a concept so that the city has some assurance of what type of projects are intended for the properties. The applicant has not provided a concept plan, which both the commission and council have requested accompany rezone applications. While a concept drawing is not specifically required in a rezone application, having one allows the city to have some understanding of the developer's intent in pursuing the rezone, thus the recommendation against approval of this rezone request. In this submission, it appears that the only additional information Mr. Randall has provided is a zone change application form, and even that is incomplete. Mr. Randall states that this is to be a master plan property, yet provides no evidence that any planning has occurred, and thus appears to be a smokescreen. He has also not provided an attachment as stated in his application that would have provided information on permitted uses. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. So go ahead.
Okay, I want to address a couple of things. Not sure where our realtors are, but they'll be here, I'm sure. So I wasn't going to talk about that, but since Mr. George brought up some issues, I want to emphasize, since my family is the landowner, that we're looking at rezoning on the east part of South Weber. I would like to remind him for what he just said. It's not his property. I'd also like to remind him that even though supposedly 500 people filled out a survey for the general plan, that means over 7,000 people didn't have a problem. I don't think we can assume, because a lot of people say this is what they want, that that means everyone wants that. Secondly, I think it's a mistake to think that because it's simply in the general plan that the property owners lose their rights. If the city decided to put on their general plan, we need more pickleball courts, and we're going to look at different residences throughout the city that have a large enough lot for pickleball court. We're going to put that on the general plan. So expect that the city is going to come to you and say, we want a pickleball court in your backyard because you have enough room for it. I don't think the citizens would go for that just because it's on the general plan. We still have to consider the rights of the property owners, first and foremost. Secondly, we have a pollution problem in South Weber. It's a major problem. This bucket is full of pollution. It's coming apart now, but this was taken out of my rain gutter last fall. As you can see, obviously the pine needles are from my tree. I have tall trees. They go in the gutter, it's a problem. But the fine pollution that's stuck to this and what's in the bottom of this bucket is just a sampling of the pollution. Sorry, I can't show you that without making a bigger mess. Basically, there's this fine cement-like powder. It's like gunpowder, cement powder that is polluting our community. It pollutes my house every day. It pollutes a lot of homes every day in South Weber. If we had a Dow Chemical company in South Weber that was leaking pollution over most of the city, I think we'd have a concern. That's what's happening. Now, I know one gravel pit's on the agenda tonight. I don't mean to be personal. We have pollution from two sources, from both gravel pits. One gravel pit appears to be a good business neighbor, appears. Sometimes we think because they pay for our fireworks, they're a good neighbor. No problem. Well, there's still a problem. There's even a bigger problem on a year like this year when we don't have any water to hose down the pollution that's escaping from these companies. My yard, for the last several years, we've always had pollution, but there's a new kind of pollution that's come the last several years, and it's coming from Geneva. I'm certain. All you have to do is look at the piles of whatever they're doing, the bottom of their pit. That's what's ending up in my yard, sticking to my cement and my patios, my driveways, falling on my roof, falling in my trees, falling in my yard, going in my lungs. If the windows are open at night, which we can't hardly do, it's going in our drapes, in our carpets, in our electronics, in our cars, in any vehicle we have outside. This is a pollution problem. Now, the gravel pits were really smart, and years ago they greased the skids in the legislature so that your hands are tied if you try and do something about it in so many ways. They require that almost have to have a thick cloud of pollution before you can say anything. And then if the wind's blowing a certain velocity, well, act of nature, sorry, we can't really do anything about that. Again, if this was Dow Chemical Company and pollution was coming out of their factory, and it was toxic and it was dangerous, Would we do something about it? I think we would. We don't know the countless number of people that have had respiratory issues. Let's say there's not the high concentration of arsenic or other dangerous things that they say need to be in there. If I were to dump this bucket out across the front, turn on a fan back here and let that blow in your face, don't worry, it's not toxic. You're breathing it. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your lungs. I don't know why we would want to work with a pit that has refused to work with the city in the past. I've been there. I've been up here where you guys are. Yes, Parson comes to the table. They do some things. There's a lot of things they don't do, they say they will do. The city's in a dichotomy. The city likes the revenue they get from Parsons. They don't get much from Geneva. All we get is pollution and pushback. They're not team players. They don't care what's blowing out of their pit. They don't try to control what's blowing out of their pit. It's a problem. I told the mayor a few years ago when she came to our house and we swept this fine powdery dust, put it in a bottle. I said, Mayor, what I see coming is a class action lawsuit. Now, either the city is going to be a co-plaintiff against the gravel pits, or they're going to be a co-defendant against the citizens. The city is in a pivotal point here where they've got to do something about this. Now, to just roll over and play dead, oh, it's no big deal. We're just, changing this and taking it from agriculture, put it back, and then they can just, continue mine. Well, guess what? More pollution in the air, and it is pollution. We have to have a mindset that this is pollution. It's not just a little dust, it's pollution. If you were to look at the homes west of Parsons, and you look at some of the lawns that are inches above what the original lawn was, where'd that come from? Pollution. It's transient pollution. Am I allowed to let my garbage blow into my neighbor's yard without repercussions? Am I allowed to dump toxic chemicals or anything else over my fence into my neighbor without repercussions? No. Would be polluting. I would be trespassing. My garbage would be trespassing. That's what's happening, but everyone is blind to it. Everyone is turn your eye, turn your face, and it's just a little dust, and they're doing the best they can. And we as a city, we're just kind of helpless. Well, we got to figure out what we can do. I would start by saying no operations if the wind's blowing. Now, is it their fault the wind blows? No. Is it their fault that the pits are at the front of a canyon that blows every day? They chose to be there. They've got to deal with the elements and not just say it's an act of God. Sorry, do the best you can. Drive across the highway and see how the cars are being sandblasted on those days when stuff's pouring out of the pits. That's just Geneva. That doesn't include what's blown out of Parsons. City's got to do something about both these pits. Now, a lot of you are new. I've been here my whole life. When I was on the city council and before, I preached my gospel of these need to be turned into lakes. So make it look like I have a self-interest in trying to promote that needs to be turned into lakes. But I'll tell you one thing, I'll bet this year Weber Basin wishes that was full of water that they could pump up to their pipes. And there's been studies done in the past. We've had when city manager was Matt Dixon, we did extensive studies. We had an engineer come from Colorado to show how Weber Basin would love to pour water into especially Geneva's pit, because it's closer to the aquifer. And so I said, okay, let's make the Parson pit recreation. We'll keep the level a certain level. It can be windsurfing, wave run, or whatever. We'll have a pipe go under Highway 89, which goes into Geneva. They can percolate the water into the Delta aquifer, which is what they want. When that seals up with silt, they scrape it so it can do it all over again. There's lots of good things here. But what they're doing is using that land to stage production. Bring in toxic pollution, crush it, remake it, sell it, and haul it back out. You guys don't get a penny of it, but we get all the dust and pollution from it. There's got to be more serious thought going into this. We can't just roll over every time and ignore this problem.
Mr. Paul, if it's okay, we just try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. You've gone over just a little bit.
Okay, I'll quit. Thank you.
No, thank you for your comments. Sure appreciated.
Farrell Paul, 2316 East, 7800 South. And if you have a vacuum, I'll clean up my leave mess here.
And just, I'm sorry, we had a few folks join us here late. Just we're in our public comment phase of our meeting. So if there are comments on any of the agenda items, now is the time to get up to the podium, state your name and address, and if you have anything to bring before the commission. Go ahead, please.
You're good. You're good.
Hi, my name's Georgie Colvins, and we live at 7486 South Cornea Drive, right across from the pit there. And we've been there 5.5 years. But like this gentleman was saying, there's most nights when that canyon wind comes out, I can look across the street and it just looks like a whirlwind of, I guess, pollution and dust. And I cannot leave my windows open at all, or else I'll have 1/4 inch of dust. And we're just kind of concerned for our health. My husband has lung cancer, so we have to stay in quite a bit. But and now that they're digging across the street, I don't know what they're doing over there, but I got a big pile of dirt, and it just has made it even worse. So that's kind of what I'm telling you. I'm kind of concerned when it comes to pollution and arsenic and that type of stuff.
Yeah, I'm Jim Colvin, 7486 South
Commissioner
Corona
Walton,
Drive.
can I interrupt real quick, Commissioner Walton?
Yeah.
We are having a public hearing on some of these items, so I'm wondering if these comments relate to those, if they should wait to the public hearing, but your call.
We don't have too many folks here with us tonight, so I think maybe we gather the comments now, and then we can speed through maybe the public hearing portion.
Sounds good. Just wanted to raise that. Thanks.
No, thanks. Good point.
Yeah, I just seen, I didn't get any information really on what was going on here today. I just seen the signs and more or less came down. And like I said, I live within 100 yards of the pit across between Sure-Still and the Job Corps. It's my house, the log home there on Cornea. So like you said, sometimes my cars and stuff are dusted thick. You know, I don't need any more pollution. Like I said, I have lung cancer, and it started off as rare breast cancer for male, and it's due to something I ingested or have been inhaling. And let me tell you, it's not good. I go on hospice starting next week. And if it's polluting and stuff, it doesn't need to do that to people. So about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? Thank you for all those who provided your comments. We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is approval of consent agenda. Oh, I apologize. One other item that I need to bring up on public comments. There was a public comment that was received through the city's website. Hopefully all the commissioners had an opportunity to review it. At this point, I'm getting a few head nods that maybe we haven't had an opportunity to see that. So I don't know if it would be appropriate to read that in so that we can have that as part of the record. thoughts?
Totally, I would appreciate if it got rid of.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. This is from Craig Karen, and he states, "To whom it may concern, I am deeply opposed to this rezone. I live about 2 to 3 miles west of the sand and gravel pits, and my home is constantly inundated with sand. I cannot go to the Weaver County dump with my pickup truck unless the items are under a tarp. The trucks that leave the sand and gravel pit are not covered. Sand is blowing everywhere. Geneva rock has devastated the landscape, making an ugly hole with no prospect of correcting it. I'm sure the city receives some compensation, but I do not feel that this is worth the damage to the roofs, windows, siding, and yards of those of us who receive the unwanted sand from Geneva rock. My grass is 3 inches above the sidewalk due to the constant buildup of sand. Please consider the welfare of the citizens of the city over the greedy request of Geneva rock. Sincerely, J. Craig Karen." And Mr. Karen is at 7563 South, 2020 East, South Weaver. Okay. Without any other public comment, we'll go ahead and close the public comment period and move to the approval of the consent agenda for the Planning Commission meeting on May 13th. Has the members of the commission had an opportunity to review those minutes? And if so, do you have any comments, questions?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
And it's actually just related to the emailed public comments that were sent in for that meeting. I never received those prior to the meeting. The 2 comments specifically from Rob Osborne, from Brent Paul. I did not see those until they were included in this meeting's packet. So
Brent Paul one was forwarded before the meeting started.
Okay.
Because Gary had requested it, that it was actually sent to Gary himself.
Yep.
And the one from Rob Osborne even
After the meeting. Okay, because that's where I was like, what did I miss? Wanting to like close the loop on that so that it wasn't something that was happening. So that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Use
please.
that? I don't know. Just on page 4, I'm yeah.
I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, I was listed as someone who voted and I wasn't present, so thank you.
I saw that today, I'm sorry.
I got a quick question on this. See this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it works. On the Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 10A, the land use matrix, did the city council adopt that?
They did.
They did?
Mhm.
Okay, so they adopted all of those sections.
They what?
They adopted all of those sections,
They
the
did.
definitions and the zoning districts.
Yeah, the only changes that the city council made to it, between the time that it went to planning commission and the time that it went to city council, we got some more information about what the city has to do with internal accessory dwelling units. I believe we kind of talked about that at the planning commission, but the city council put the recommended zones. They made that addition, and then they made a couple technical changes. But other than that, they were really pleased with the work that the code committee had done, that the planning commission had done. And so they adopted it at their meeting on the 25th.
Thanks.
Okay, with that, if there's no other comment, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Losi?
Aye.
Commissioner Boatright?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. All right, we'll move on to our first, to the 4th agenda item here. This is the final plat and site approval plans for Riverside Place Phase 4, approximately 4.6 acres, 12 lots rezoned to RM, located at approximately at 6700 South Pebble Creek Drive by applicant Scott Heggie, I hope I have that right, of MB Riverside Place. So,
Commissioner Walton.
yes.
Excuse me, normally when somebody hasn't been
Oh, I apologize. You're correct. Yeah. So if you're okay with that, with abstaining from the last consent of the agenda,
Oh, yeah.
do we need to have another roll call vote or can you just address it that? Okay, thank you. All right. Do I have a motion to open? I'm sorry, we don't have to have a motion on this one. So,
No, this is just a
yeah,
discussion.
sorry, the
item.
discussion. Sherry, would you mind giving us an overview of this? Your comments?
So the request before the planning commission tonight is to make a recommendation to the city council on phase 4 of Riverside Place. As it states in the executive summary, the property is located at approximately 575 East and 6675 South in South Weber. It's not the first phase, it's building off of completed prior phases in the subdivision. The project has been reviewed by city staff for compliance with all of the relevant zoning and engineering codes, standards, and specifications. And with a few noted exceptions, most of which are related to like a technical clarification or a water letter that they need to provide. As far as the design and layout of the plat, it's fully compliant. If if you'd like, I can go into more outline. The one thing that I do want to make sure that is understood, that on the density, what the ordinance states is that in the residential medium moderate density zone, the density is limited to 2.8 building lots per acre, unless the entire preliminary plat is approved. Well, you know what, let me just read it from my memo, so I'm not trying to re-explain. What it says in city code is there shall be no more than 2.80 building lots per acre contained within the boundary of each phase of every subdivision or planned unit development, except, and this is the case that applies in this situation, when previously completed phases of the same development have sufficiently low density so that the average is still 2.80 across the entire thing. So the density of this phase is slightly above 2.80, but as I just read in code, because the density in other phases is low enough, it still falls under that. It still falls under the 2.8. All of the lots meet or exceed the required minimum lot size. And when factoring in all of the phases of the subdivision, the average lot width also meets the standard that's outlined. Unless Brandon has something that he wants to add to it, in all material aspects related to zoning and engineering, the plat is compliant and it would be appropriate. If the commission agrees with that, it would be appropriate to make a positive recommendation to the city council.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. Do we have anyone from Riverside Place who'd like to make any comments or provide any other explanation? Not sure if we have anybody.
I don't think they're here.
Okay.
I'm hoping they would be here. They've got to be so excited. Phase 4.
Yeah, phase
We're
4.
done, right? Sorry, I'm getting excited for them.
Well, so I'm sorry. I'll provide the opportunity for the other members of the planning commission to comment before I do. But are there any other comments, questions, concerns from the commission?
It's just a continuation of the Riverside Place that's already been approved by us.
Correct.
And so I see it as nothing significant here.
Okay.
My only thing was if the items from that executive summary that you very, as long as they're provided prior to going to city council, and is timing on that going to be okay for getting those necessary letters and everything?
It is. We've adjusted because we recognize that that we needed a little more time to make sure things are fully compliant that come out of planning commission, because we don't want anything to be missed. We have adjusted things a little bit so that when something comes out of the planning commission, it will go to the city council meeting at the beginning of the next month instead of the second city council meeting of the same month.
Okay.
And that just gives us usually a couple extra weeks just to make sure things like this are taken care of, gives staff time to work with the developer on any changes. And it doesn't put anybody under a really big time crunch. So we just added that.
They'll get it first city council meeting in
Mhm.
August
July.
or July.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yep.
I just had a general question, maybe directed to Brandon here. So just on the stormwater prevention plan, there was the entrance with the clean gravel lay down there. And my understanding is to, try to knock loose some, the function of that is to knock loose some of the debris from the trucks coming in and out of the construction area. And I'm just curious as to why there's not one on the east side of the development as it goes into the neighborhoods.
We try to limit them to one entrance in and out.
Okay.
But these plans aren't set in stone. If it appears that there's needed adjustments as they start, then we work with them on that.
Okay. And that was the only thing that I really had a question on as I drove it. I just wondered about how much of that dirt and gravel and everything would come out into the neighborhood to the east as trucks came in.
Yeah, they need to keep the streets clean. So if they choose to let some trucks go that route and they're getting mud and stuff out on the roads, they'll have to clean that up, and then we'll have to have them either readjust what they're doing or keep cleaning the streets, which
Sure.
I think they would rather not. So
And I do want to point out one thing. I believe that I may have pointed this out, or I may not have. The lots that are adjacent to Old Fort Road, none of them are going to be allowed to have their primary access onto their, just as a safety measure, they're all going to have to access from inside the subdivision.
Off of Riverside Way. Is it Riverside Way or whatever the street?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to point that out, because I know Old Fort is planned to be a little bit more significant of a road. And so that was one thing that staff made sure that the developer understood, is that none of those lots could have their driveway access onto there.
Okay.
Because we don't want cars pulling in and off from a driveway.
Yeah.
What sort of fencing is there going to be behind those lots that are potentially against Old Fort Road?
What's the what?
What sort of fencing is going to be required?
Whatever fencing is allowed in city code, they would be allowed to do. We don't have a specific fencing standard that we would put in on them. I mean, they would have to meet like height limits and stuff like that that's set out in code, but beyond that, we don't dictate what kind of fencing they have to have.
Because I can imagine that there's going to be chain link fences, mix mash all the way down through there.
Yeah, there may be some inconsistency.
What has the developer been putting into the previous phases?
They have an HOA.
Because I was gonna say, I thought it was all
They have
vinyl.
an-
Sorry,
fencing.
there's still some things.
They have
that I
an
still
HOA
learning.
and it is,
Okay.
and it is vinyl fence right now for currently. I think that's what's in their HOA.
Okay.
This is why Councilmember Halverson comes to the meetings, because there's still a lot of things that I don't know.
I didn't know if that's who that was. He doesn't have a placard out in front of his.
That's for good reason. Is your mic
Get
on?
his picture
It
off
is.
the
Can you
wall.
hear
and
me
we can
now?
hold it.
I turned the lights on.
Okay.
So
I was just asked on by someone.
I'll talk closer to the microphone.
Is there any other question, comment? If not, I look for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the final plat site and improvement plans for Riverside Place Phase 4, the 4.16 acres, the 12 lot zoned residential moderate RM located at approximately 6700 South Pebble Creek Drive for Scott. I don't know if I have to say that. Heggie. Sorry. Heggie.
Can I make one clarification?
Yes.
On final plats,
Mhm.
the commission recommends it.
Yes, sorry,
to-
recommending for approval to city council.
Yeah. It's okay. Like, I know that there's things that are different depending on
I got that.
what type of action it is.
I think that's good.
I'll second that.
Can I just make an amendment to that? That is subject also to the request that Brandon Jones put in his memo.
Yes, the executive summary, the points in the executive summary that were still needing to be addressed prior to going to city council.
Great.
Amendment accepted.
Great. Still a second?
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Johnson,
Yay.
Commissioner Davis,
Yay.
Commissioner Losi,
Yay.
Commissioner Boatright,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All right, next agenda item, we have a public hearing and action on rezone request, which is 16.34 acres from agricultural to natural resource zone for Geneva Rock located at approximately 2830 Geneva Drive. Applicant Bill Gamble of Geneva Rock Products. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Do we, Sherry, if you don't mind giving us a rundown of this one too, and then if we have a representative from Geneva, we'll hear from them.
Yeah.
Or, I'm
just-
sorry, public comment or public hearing. I apologize. Going too fast.
Yep. Process.
Yeah.
I hand this out at the time.
I got it. I got it.
Thanks.
Paul Sturm, 2527 Deer Run Drive.
Thank you.
You have your own theme music now, Paul.
Thanks, Sherry. Okay, agenda item number 5, packet page 29 of 57. Public hearing and action on rezone request 16.34 acres from agricultural to natural resources for Geneva Rock. I fully agree with the South Waver City Planner in that the citizens' concerns were primarily what will happen with the ground once the mining operations cease. Another concern is that why is Geneva currently mining in an agricultural zone? After review of the general plan map, it currently shows the property to be light industrial and commercial recreation, not natural resources. Is this a disconnect with what is being proposed? The legal description provided in the zone change application appears to be the same as shown below for the entire parcel description extracted from the Davis County property search. I suggest that this be reviewed on screen during the Planning Commission meeting as shown below as extracted from Davis County property search. This map clearly shows the present pit configuration, and I believe Geneva needs to better explain their intentions for this proposed expansion. Thank you.
Any other public comment? If not, I make a motion to close public comment. Public hearing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Trying to
Phil.
understand why the public comment comes before we hear from the, people doing the changing. How do you ask a question after?
No.
To me, same thing with city council. When I was on there, that didn't make sense that you have people give a comment and then all the presentations are made and those comments are made. So at least let us make a comment here, but I don't understand why we can't try to figure out what they're trying to do in order for us to make a comment regarding.
Fair point, and I think that's something that we could always address in future meetings with our bylaws. So point taken. Appreciate it. Any other public comment? If not, I look for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll
I'll
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, Sherry, if you don't mind giving your rundown.
I'm happy to do that. So there's two different elements to what's going on here. So there's the rezone of the property that's being requested in order for Geneva Rock to expand their current excavation operation. And I share Mr. Sturm's concern, and I had the same question about the intent of the general plan. And I asked the city manager, I asked the city attorney, we talked about it a little bit. And it would be a little bit different if it was a brand new use, but where it's expanding an existing use, the request to rezone is handled a little bit differently. So that's part of the reason why I didn't weigh in heavily on the fact that in the general plan, this property is zoned something else, because it's already being used as the use that's being expanded. But the property currently surrounding the proposed rezone area is already zoned natural resources. Rezoning this parcel would be in line with the current use of the property. So that's the rezone part of it. And there's been a lot of helpful comment and concern about the dust and things like that come about as a result of the operation. That excavation, mining, whatever you choose to call it, is a conditional use in the natural resources zone. So if this property were to be rezoned, that doesn't automatically mean that they can start expanding and going fully at their business the next day. They do still, if the property is rezoned, they would after that have to come in as a separate application and get a conditional use permit. And at that time, the very valid concerns about dust, noise, hours of operation, and all of those things that we would associate with this type of operation as being detrimental. At that time, those things are considered and measures can be put into place to mitigate those detrimental impacts. So just so you understand, and so the public understands that there's two parts to this request. And different things get handled at different in each of those parts. So the commission's role in this, rezones are legislative issues. So again, this is one where the commission would be making a recommendation to the city council. As with any recommendation, you can recommend that the council approve or deny the request. You're able to attach conditions to the recommendation. If you choose to recommend against it, they have the option of coming back to the commission with a different plan. They can go forward to the city council with a recommendation against. So there's different things that can happen based on the commission's recommendation. I have, again, this is another one where rezone request has come forward without a concept. Again, I know it's frustrating to the public and often to the commissioners when this happens, but because it's not specifically in code required, that's why, and it may be something that we need to entertain down the road as putting into code. But until such time, because they've submitted a complete application, they are entitled to come before the planning commission, and then you kind of do with it what you feel is appropriate.
Okay.
Is that helpful? Do you guys have any other questions of me?
I did have a question, and this might actually tag
Okay.
with Brandon. First, was the agricultural zone, so the land that they're requesting to be rezoned, the 16.34 acres, was that kept agricultural? and not put as the natural resource as a buffer for all of those properties and homeowners that were there off of Cornea Drive?
I have no idea. That as long as I've been here, it's been zoned like this.
Okay,
So I don't know if that was intentional or if it was just left over.
okay. So kind of an unknown. And then do we know what the current conditions that were put in place for the area that was zoned NR?
Here's the thing with that. That I'm aware of, the operation has been there for so long that there is no agreement with the city. So that I think it predated a lot of things. Ordinance codes, regulations were different when they started their operation. At this point, the city doesn't have an agreement with them. I anticipate that when they do come in for their conditional use permit, at that point, as a part of the conditional use permit approval and review, at that point, the city will be in a position to get an agreement in place.
Okay.
So,
Is Mr. Let's see, I just had the name Gamel here. Anybody from Geneva? All right.
there's a ghost.
So,
Somebody
okay.
making their presence
Ghost of
known.
If it keeps doing it, you have to take the light bulb out, sorry.
Sorry, Commissioner Walton.
Yeah.
There's nobody from Geneva there. Is that correct?
There is not.
Okay? That helps me.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns amongst the Planning Commission?
I have a few. First of all, what they're looking at is they're recycling concrete in there. It is not a natural resource. It's a man-made resource. So therefore, there is a certain amount of what is referred to as fugitive dust, which blows up out of there. It's a Bureau of Land Management term, and it's a impact to the environment. And if it happens more than 3 days out of 5, there is a major impact to the environment under NEPA law. So that's a situation that needs to be looked at. And following that up, because they are recycling concrete in there, I think the Department of Air Quality, or the Division of Air Quality, and the Department of Environmental Quality should be looking into the effects of that recycling of concrete. What sort of pollutants are coming out of that concrete when it's ground up and the dust goes into the air? I think this is one of the main things that we need to look at is what kind of pollutants are we actually getting there? And we need a report from the Division of Air Quality or the Department of, under the Department of Environmental Quality. Another thing is we do have an agreement with Parsons on their mining operations. When the city approached Geneva about getting an agreement, Geneva basically said, not in my lifetime. So that's been already set in stone by Geneva. They do not want an agreement with the city. Now, if we do rezone, the conditional use permit, like Sherry said, is something that we can put a firm grip on Geneva to make them do what needs to be done properly. And that is a issue that I think is very important in this. Mr. Paul mentioned the study on putting water in there for a lake. I've got a copy of the study, and it basically says there's not enough water in the Weber Basin to put a lake in there. And even Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, talking with their assistant manager up there, he said there's no way that they could do that. Weber Basin has a pit, not a pit, but it's a recharge area, and they can't get water into that recharge area with the current amount of water rights in the Weber Basin as it is right now. So putting a lake in there, it's almost a, forget it, it's never going to happen. Pardon? On flood years. And we have not had a flood year since 2012. Yeah. And talked to them about that. I mentioned one time, can we put a public fishery in there? And they said, no way, not enough water. Yeah. So anyway, I don't think we can rezone this, in my opinion. There should be an that agricultural area should be a buffer between the residents. When you get the winds coming out of the canyon, you get what's called a Venturi effect, and it bends the wind around, and it splays out there, and you're going to get a backflow along that residential area in there, and that's going to increase some of the pollution in that area. I know Parsons in the past have said their biggest problem is the sand and dust coming out of Geneva. That's a problem for them, and that most of the, I forget who did the study, but most of the dust that we receive in South Weaver comes out of Geneva versus the Parsons plant.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
Yeah, I just had a really quick question. I think this goes to maybe Brandon, but maybe Sheriff, I don't know. If we do rezone to CH instead of agriculture, does that mean they are allowed to then use that property outside of the mining and outside of, like, they can use that as like a type of different staging than they would if it was zoned agricultural? Can they use that property for any other reason?
Do you mean NR?
NR, not
NR, yeah,
CH.
sorry. Yeah.
There are very, very, very few uses that are allowed in the NR zone as permitted or conditional. So if it did get rezoned, they would be strictly limited to those uses in the land use matrix that we just adopted.
Gotcha. Because I'm in favor of going forward with it for the sole purpose of giving the city some leverage to get some kind of contract from Geneva. If they're not able to do anything without the limited use permit anyway, then I don't see any downside. I was gonna say something, I told him, my mind just went blank. I definitely share the concerns with the residents of the dust, because we experienced it in the first house that we lived in, and that was over off 1900, so it definitely covers a lot of the city. But I feel like we could get a lot more benefit from that space if we were able to change it to NR, and then the city has a lot more power to go in there and try to get a contract with Geneva. That's kind of where my thought was, is we could use it as a leverage over anything else. I'm done.
Can I make one comment on that, Commissioner Wall? I will say that Commissioner Davis has a point. I mean, I'm not gonna sway the commission one way or the other, but I will say that right now the city has very, very little recourse or leverage to bring some of the issues under control, because Geneva refuses to have an agreement. But if the property were to be rezoned, they do have to get a conditional use permit to expand it. And at that point, that's when the city has the leverage to bring the entire thing
Into the conditional use.
because it's one business that they're expanding. So the conditional use permit doesn't just touch the expanded part because it's all part of the same business. It would be the entire operation that would come under those regulations.
Can I ask a question? Why have they been so difficult to work with the city? And is it hesitation or is it just flat out refusal?
Can either of you speak to that?
Refusal? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, they don't have to be further regulated, so why take that on if you don't have to? So I'm sure that's the way they're looking at it. I maybe have a follow-up question for Sherry, just on the timing, I guess, of this. Does it have to be rezoned and then in order to kick in the conditional use permit requirement? Or could the city just say, if you want it rezoned, we need to work together on an agreement. And if we can get an agreement set up, then we will rezone it.
There is also that option because rezones are legislative.
Yep.
The city has, and I appreciate you bringing that up because that was a thought I had had since I put this information out. Because the rezone is legislative, the city has a lot broader authority on what conditions and things like that they will and won't. They will and won't accept if they're going to rezone it. So that is something that the commission could recommend the council do.
Okay. Because I'll admit, without even seeing a concept plan of what they're even planning for these 60 acres and trying to get an understanding of how does it affect those residents that are right there, seeing this, living through this daily, I really can't say yay or nay at this point. If anything, I want to say come back when you have the information, you have the plan, and you actually are willing to step up to the table and work with the city. You know, it can't just be you saying no, but hey, by the way, we want this. I mean, you've got to work with us, and then we've got to be able to have the ability to protect our citizens, protect our city, you know, and even if they don't have regulations from the city level, do they still have regulations from the state level that they need to, I mean, Wes touched on 2 points, you know, with the Department of Air Quality and then the environmental quality. I mean, is there something that's being done at that level to ensure like they're not putting out, you know,
They
excess
have
amounts?
to meet MSHA requirements
Okay.
and they get inspected.
Quick,
Did I tell the commission what I know? About 8 years ago, they told me that they're growing trees there. And the person from Weaver State was doing experimental, how much water does it use? But as I've looked across in the last 3 weeks, they've removed the topsoil. They've already prepared it for the new usage. I don't know how they could use it for agriculture.
Could you state who you are, please?
I'm Charles Paul.
Charles Paul. Thank you.
Another point on the natural resource zoning. One of the conditional uses is excavation or extraction.
Right.
There's nothing on the matrix about reusing concrete. So if they're taking concrete down in there, which I firmly believe they are, you see the piles of it down there, and they're grinding it up to reuse, that's in violation of our matrix that we put together. So.
Okay.
How do we handle that? How do we handle that?
So for,
I would need to look into it more in time.
sorry, do you have any other comments, questions?
I think most of mine have all been addressed throughout the conversation.
Okay.
No concept plan,
Yeah.
really nothing that we can weigh in on, and the fact that, what was it? No agreement in place. I actually am concerned hearing some of this about the fact that they're doing something that maybe doesn't even fit within their current zoning allowances is concerning. So
I'll have Chris Tremea, our city code
Look into
enforcement
it.
guy, look in.
that'd be great.
Commissioner Boatright, do you have any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I just really second what everybody has said. I'm really disappointed that they didn't send somebody. They had to have known that this would have been a hot topic, and to not come and address those concerns, I am disappointed. I would like to know what it means that they're expanding their work. What does that exactly mean that they're doing? Will they be excavating this area? Will they just be using it as a dumping ground? There's many more questions that there are no answers to, and that's because they didn't show up. I do like the idea of using this as leverage to get an agreement in place with them. I think it's pretty loud and clear that the city would like to see that. I think it's needed. And so I for one will not be recommending for the rezone.
Okay, I think I have the same opinion most on the commission. I feel like given what's been presented and what we have in hand from Geneva, it's not a good basis to making a change to the general plan. So with that said, is there a motion that someone's willing to make at this point?
I'd like to make a motion to table this until Geneva and the city sits down and comes up with an agreement as to what can be done down there. And also until environmental studies are done to let the city know what sort of pollutions or pollutants are coming out of the pit.
Can I make an addition to that motion? I want to see a concept plan. We keep asking for it. I know that it's not part of our code yet, but I think the expectation is out there. I'd like to see a concept plan. It's really hard as a commissioner to sit and weigh in and give an opinion on something I can't see. I don't know what they're thinking. So a concept plan would be appreciated.
I'll accept that.
So just for clarity, are we saying that the motion is to table until Geneva comes before the planning commission for a conditional use permit? And
Until the
rezone
Geneva
application?
comes to the city with an acceptable agreement, and then to the planning commission for a conditional use permit after environmental studies are done. We need to have those environmental studies in place before we can proceed.
I think we're trying to figure out that concept, right? For somebody to come in and have a conditional use permit, or in their application, we're trying to figure out, the process to figure out what studies they need to have done prior to the meeting, right? And I think that's
The
hard part is
required
we don't right
studies
now.
would part of the conditional use permit application. If they came to the planning commission with an application for a conditional use permit, that is something that at that point, if they don't provide satisfactory evidence of what's going on, that's something that you can not send them away, but you can continue a conditional use permit until they provide those. So, yeah.
And I appreciate your comments and recommendation. I just want to, I think setting the table for our next conversation is going to be important.
Yeah.
So if that's the expectation, is that we have some kind of,
Agreement in place,
at least a proposed agreement.
right? And then you would have to have the conditional use permit, which would be based on the environmental studies.
So I'm not sure if it's so much in our place to have that before us, as it would be the city council to have that for them.
Right, city council would
But-
have to do it, but if we table it with these recommendations.
Yeah,
They bring it back to us, then we can.
okay.
If we table something, doesn't that mean we have to revisit it with the next number of days?
90 days. If they don't come back
Hey.
with 90 days,
Sorry, what's the question? Do you need me to clarify something?
I think Wes was doing it, but if we table something, we're required to readdress that within 90 days. Is that
No, tabling and continuing are different. Continuing, it automatically kicks it to the next agenda. Tabling, you basically said, look, we're not going to look at this again until X happens. And then if that happens, then it gets put on another agenda. Continuing moves it forward to another meeting. Tabling says we're not looking at this again till
that's right.
fill in the blank.
There's one other question that I was hoping.
Because a motion's been made,
Oh, we have to,
you
okay.
need to limit it to
Sorry about that.
your discussion.
Regrettably, yes. So yeah, we'll move on. Since we have a motion before the commission, we'll have to go ahead and vote on that. So we have the motion recorded. Is there a second to the motion?
Can I have the motion repeated? I'm not sure
Yeah.
what, if anything, was dropped or re-emphasized in that.
Wes, do you want to take a stab at it? It's your motion.
Motion is to table the agreement, to table the zoning, the rezoning until such time that the city has come up with an agreement with Geneva, and that agreement would be based upon environmental studies. The agreement would require a conditional use permit, which would be based upon environmental studies.
Okay.
And what Julie had, what was it?
I just want to see a
In
concept plan.
Concept plan.
Commissioner Boatright, does that satisfy?
Yeah, it's a little, I'm just wondering if we should just say that we table it until they come up with an agreement with the city. I don't know. I think we're putting a lot in there that I don't know if we can actually force them at this point, but at least
it's the recommendation.
That's true.
City council.
That's true. Thank you. That's true.
Actually, if you table it, it's not a recommendation to the city council. That's an action.
Okay.
That it would not come back to the planning commission. I believe the intent, I understand the commission's intent that there be environmental studies and things like that included in the operating agreement. So staff can take that intent
Okay.
and understand and move forward with that, even if the commission limits the motion to table it until such time as an operating agreement is in place between the city and Geneva.
Right.
One of you guys just now needs to.
Oh,
Somebody repeat
if that's what your
Sherry said.
intent is.
That was my comment that I wanted to make, because I think there is already an agreement with the city.
There's
Not
with
with
Geneva,
Geneva,
there's
not
not.
with Geneva.
There was at one time, I served on a committee that was to study the gravel pits. And we took tours down inside, we saw these trees planted that are now been removed. There was even trees along, Highway 89 that they initially planted, and they couldn't water them, and they came up with every excuse of why they couldn't meet that condition. And every time they try to corner them, they have a way to slip around and get out.
All right. Does that change your motion, Wes? Maybe clarify it a little bit?
Just to table until an agreement is reached with the city.
Yep.
Okay.
And then recommend that the city
Yeah.
look
Take
at.
into account.
Yeah. We have the intent of the agreement
Okay,
from the
good.
discussion.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Johnson,
Yay.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Boatright.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 6, public hearing and action on rezone request. 2.78 acres from agricultural A to CH, commercial highway, and 8.85 acres from agricultural A to R7 for South Weaver Gateway located approximately 2310 East South Weaver Drive.
I will say, let me say one thing before you go through the process of opening the public hearing.
Yeah.
It actually would probably be helpful for the public if staff does their intro, then you open the public hearing.
Certainly. Sorry, I was just following what we had kind of established in some of our
I know,
bylaws, and
I
think we
know,
cleaned it
and
up.
it probably is helpful if we do it that way.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The work in progress.
Yeah, right. All right, so we'll go ahead with that. Just to finish out the agenda item, the applicant is Brad Brown of Colliers International. So do I have let's see, well, let's go ahead and have staff provide their report on this agenda item.
Okay. And the request before you is to make a recommendation to the city council on a proposal to rezone the property. The project is known as South Weaver Gateway. It's also frequently referred to as the Paul property. They've requested 2 different zones on the property. They've requested to rezone 2.78 acres to highway commercial and 8.85 acres to residential R7. Right now, the property is zoned agricultural. The property, if you're unfamiliar with it, is located just west of the Highmark Charter School. There have been ongoing discussions about the development possibilities of the property. Part of the reason that there have been ongoing discussions, but that this hasn't come before the Planning Commission before this point, is because in the general plan process, this property and a couple other properties throughout the city were identified as areas where there should be a development plan or development agreement in place. And so the process on those properties has been slightly different than a traditional rezone and development of a property. There have been some discussions with the city council. There have been discussions with staff, but there hasn't been a formal application for anything. So that just so you're aware, that's why that's why there's been discussions, but this hasn't come to the planning commission yet. At this point in those discussions, both the city and the developer felt that the appropriate step at this point would be for the developer to bring forward a rezone application accompanied by a concept plan so that the commission and then the council can take formal action on the request. And just to make it clear, the concept plan is not a final development plan, and approval of a rezone does not equal approval of a development plan. Discussions on phasing, access, and other things related to zoning and engineering will happen as part of the preliminary plat approval and final plat. Approval of the preliminary plat. I have to check myself on that. I was thinking of you, Commissioner Lissy. And approval of the final plat. That isn't to suggest that those things can't be discussed at this point, but the details of those are finalized at development stages that I already pointed out about the general plan. Council discussions on the residential portion of the property indicated that the developer would only be granted residential density on the portion of the project that actually is zoned residential and not on the entire project. The 62 units that are on the concept plan, that fits within the R7 zoning for the residential portion of the property. The commission, again, this is a legislative issue. The commission's role on this is to make a recommendation to the council. The rezone request to the extent possible because of the development plan and agreement designation on the general plan, to the extent possible, the rezone is compliant with the general plan's projected land use for the property. The residential property on the residential concept portion of the property is compliant with the density. There's a lot of discussion sometimes about what's the appropriate ratio of commercial to residential on a split zoning project like this. We don't have anything that specifically requires a certain ratio, so staff can't really evaluate whether it's enough because we don't currently have a standard. I don't know if the commission has any other questions for me, but that would, to this point, be my comments on the project.
So if it's okay with the commission, I think maybe we move right to having the developer, if they're present, to provide an overview of the project. I think that'd be great.
Do you want to open public comments
So
so
I
then
think
anybody?
the
can talk?
recommendation would, we get the staff comments, the developer comments, and then open. the
And
public.
then open, perfect.
So, thank you.
All right, my name is Sky Hazelhurst with hired to help the Paul family through the process, which several members are here tonight. So thank you, commissioners and staff and council members. Thanks for everyone for coming and giving us a little bit of time. So like Sherry had mentioned, you know, it's a bit of a backward process. We followed the original recommendation from the city and kind of planned to do a development agreement at city council level first, and then come through the planning commission at that point. And then the decision was made through several city council meetings that they'd rather, instead of a development agreement, go off of just a strict rezone and follow the code. That was the direction that we were given. And so we're here today to do that. We did a concept review application with the city and planning commission roughly five or 6 months ago. We did get that recommended to city council, and then it got complicated from then on out on trying to figure out a development agreement. So we've been at this a very long time, but again, out of respect for the planning commission, we did include a very thorough concept plan with the rezone request to review. So along with that, I think a couple other points I wanted to make. Let's see. I think other than that, just a quick overview of the the property. So the commercial piece has stayed over the last few months pretty much the same. You know, we wanted to create some drive-through retail, some multi-tenant retail, strip center type of style, and also an additional retail kind of more flexible commercial building furthest to the west. And so, you know, we've wanted to design something that had a, you know, kind of that gateway feel that has, you know, really high quality commercial buildings along the frontage, and you have a main entrance that has a median that kind of breaks it up. So you feel, you know, if you got this tree lined median that you drive in and you feel like you're at a real destination. It's not just your typical strip center. So anyhow, so what we're trying to present here is, you know, a good use on the back, kind of a backfill on where it gets to be an awkward shape of property. And again, we've done several revisions of this with the city council and with staff over many, many months. And so now we're here again under the direction of staff and city council on the way that they'd like to do this, which is to have you guys look at it on a rezone stand. So any questions at all, I'm happy to answer.
So from the commission, I don't think we'll have any until after the public hearing, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I think thank you for your comments. And I think at this point, do I have a motion to open the public hearing on this agenda item?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on the action and rezone request for the 2.78 acres from agricultural to commercial highway, and then the 8.85 acres from agricultural to R7 for the South Weber Gateway located at approximately 2310 East South Weber Drive, applicant Brad Brown of Colliers International.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Or all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any public comment or for our public hearing portion?
Of course.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. I got more fire stuff.
Paul Sturm. Paul Sturm, 2527 Deer Run Drive. This is regarding agenda item 6, which we've just been discussing, packet page 35 of 57, public hearing and action on rezone request, as was stated earlier. I have several concerns with the information provided by Mr. Brad Brown and Mr. Sky Hazelhurst for this public hearing. In the zone change application, Mr. Brown is requesting a rezone from A to HC. South Weber said he does not have an HC zone. There is a highway commercial CH zone, but although this is only a transposition, it is inaccurate for an official document. On page 40 of 57, I have a request regarding the southwest corner of the property as depicted. It appears that a corner of this parcel, as shown below, should be residential and would not have been designated as agricultural as presented in the drawing. In Mr. Hazelhurst's letter at the first bullet, he states, phase 1 of the project shall have a minimum of 3 retail pads constructed concurrently with no more than 33 townhome units, as depicted in sketch plan dated 5/24/21, sketch number 7152-05. Once again, the developer appears to not want to listen nor pay attention to what the City Council and Planning Commission have told them regarding this development. During prior presentations, the developer was told on several occasions by numerous members that subdivisions with more than 30 units should have a second exit. Since this is a safety issue, please see South Weaver City Code 11.4.4 below, including paragraph 3. Mr. Hazelhurst acknowledged that information regarding only 30 units with one exit during these meetings and presentations. Yet the developers now comes back with a statement and sketch plan drawing that shows 33 units. That either appears to blatantly ignore the information provided by the city, or possibly attempting to circumvent South Weaver City Code and push it to its limits. In accordance with subparagraph A of 11.4.4, the city may grant a waiver under specific conditions such as topography that I believe do not apply to this parcel, since a phase 2 is also being proposed at this time on adjacent land. But why would the city want to grant a waiver with all the past possible missteps by this developer? I believe that this is a likely warning sign of yet another developer trying to hoodwink South Weaver City in the development process, and I believe that they need to be watched closely. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Let's keep it to public comments, and then we'll allow you the time to respond after public hearing.
After discussion.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close public hearing. Do I have to specify like the public hearing I'm closing?
Do you what?
Have to make like specify the public hearing. I'm just making a motion to close the
Yeah,
public
you can
hearing.
just-
Okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm making a motion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Thank you. No problem. Thanks.
Can I say something really quick? I just want to reiterate, this is not approval of a development plan. There is no entitlement that the city is granting as far as the layout of this concept goes. There is nothing they're being exempted from. They will still have to meet all of the ingress, egress, minimums, maximums, all of that. That stuff gets reviewed by staff down the road when they come in with a sketch. That's things that Brandon looks at. It's things that I look at. So just bear that in mind, that you're not approving any development plan at this point or any layout.
I think Commissioner Boatright wanted to speak.
Oh, no, sorry, my dinner was being delivered, so I was just
Oh.
waiting. saying thank you.
You were waving your hand. I didn't know.
Sorry.
Our dinner's not being delivered. Come on, Gary. You gotta share.
Hey, it's business trip. What can I say?
Fair enough. All right. Okay. Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah, if you want to respond.
Most of what I was going to say is Sherry had already mentioned. So that's, just a concept plan is what it is. Of course, we have two access points on the property. So that they'll be built in conjunction. So the entire road will be improved once we start the development. So I guess that was the only real comment publicly, was the two access points. But just to be clear, of course, we're building the two full access points. So yes, thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Is there any comments, questions amongst the Planning Commission?
A few.
Fire away.
First of all, the city has not established a standard for residential business in this type of development. How much is going to be residential? How much is going to be business? We have bannered about 50-50, 75% business, 25% residential. I think that you've got your request backwards. It should be 8.85 acres of commercial highway and 2.78 acres of residential. I think that would fit this much better. Also, if we go back and look at the economic development strategy that the city had put together by Parsons Birkenhoff Calbeck, July 2008. This plan does not match that in any way whatsoever. And that plan was paid for by the city. And I think some of the individuals present in the audience were part of the city council at that time. It is the economic development strategy for South Weber dated July 2008. It was put together by Parsons, Brinkerhoff, and Kalbach, planning and design team. That's on file with the city if you want to take a look at it. But it also matches what the residents of the city have said they would like to see. As I said, we need to have a ratio. The city needs to establish a ratio of what this is going to be. We haven't done that. We've been debating that for 3 or 4 years now at our annual conference meetings where we get together and say, okay, what kind of ratio are we going to have? Gee, one of the city council members sits on the city council right now, said 90% business, 10% residential. And others of us said 75% business, 25% residential. And we haven't established a standard. And I think we need to establish a standard to go by before we approve any sort of mixed use or mixed use zoning on this type of a situation. And I think that there is just too much residential in this. I've heard the argument, gee, well, we can't bring the commercial in unless we got the residential because of rooftops. But the other part of that is the economics of the city. South Weber is in the top 10% in the state for income versus surrounding areas. We have more people making more money that live in South Weber than our surrounding communities on average. And that's that study was done just about 3 or 4 years ago. So anyway, I think this needs to be looked at again. And in my opinion, there's too much residential in this.
I just need to say one thing about the economic plan he referenced. That's outdated. That's not something that the city uses. It's not in effect at all.
But it does provide a basis where we can begin looking at.
Yeah.
He was a salesman, giving us a pipe dream. Didn't deliver what he promised. I would pay no attention to that.
There's no plan. That I'm sure had nothing to do with pandemic. Current
Well-
commercial demand now is very different.
Taylor, if you're gonna speak, you need to come
Yeah,
up.
and I was just gonna make mention.
Yeah,
we can
I
keep the-
can't hear him.
We can keep the comments just maybe with the planning commission for now and ask questions as they come up. I think we'll try to keep that order. So Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, so I'm in favor of approving this from the perspective of it meets current code from everything that I've seen. Obviously, the plan they put together, I don't necessarily like everything they have in there, but that's not necessarily what's going to end up being built at the end of the day. And that can be vetted out at another time. I think for the purposes of just rezoning it so that they can develop a final plan of what residential versus commercial would look like in that space, I don't see any problems here. So again, I think if it follows current code, and I don't think we can look at what the code was previously, we have to look at what it is right now. To your point, Wes, obviously with some experience previously, obviously that's helpful in making decisions, but I think our role today is all about does what they are proposing, is what they're proposing make sense for that space under current code, and everything that I've seen says that that's true. So I am in favor of rezoning it personally. Thank you.
Commissioner Losi?
So I actually have a question that's kind of tags along, I think, a little bit with what you're saying. With the general plan designating this lot as one of our cross-hatched sections that indicates the master plan development agreement, by splitting the acreage into the R7 portion and then the commercial highway portion, how does that
It doesn't. It's just the reason that there's nothing in that discussion about having a development plan or development agreement that says it all has to be one zone.
Okay.
The biggest reason that they're requesting the split zoning on it is because in discussions with the city council about whether or not they would entertain a residential component on there, which, as I understand it, well, let me back up. The reason for the split zoning is because the discussions that came out of city council leaned pretty heavily towards they were only going to allow the residential density on the portion that was zoned residential, which
They didn't want it on the entire development and
yeah,
then
by
by giving a higher
extension
number.
implies that they were going to
Okay.
proposal of 2 different zones. That doesn't affect the master planning of it. It still has to come in with
Okay.
a development plan.
Okay.
It was
Can-
more just a step to control.
Yeah,
the
can I
zoning.
add to that, there was just the gray area that
Mhm.
many had concerns with without rules.
Yep.
Mhm.
The 2 zones give you rules to follow that we have. We don't have a mixed use code.
Mm-hmm.
So this just puts rules in place
Mhm.
and that's it. The development agreement, I still think will apply.
Will apply to it.
That's
It'll
my
still be
opinion.
master
As
planned.
long as that's the way it goes from
Okay.
here to.
Because I know there was a comment in the phasing where it said, phase 1, phase 2, and then specific phase 3 where it will be built. And I don't have it in front of me because it keeps crashing every time I try to load the link up on my
I was
phone.
doing the same thing.
But yes, and it was right when I was getting to the concept plan every
Yeah.
time for a week.
I don't know if
Very
that's our
frustrating.
website or what.
But Jeremy's got it up here right now. And first of all, thank you for bringing us a concept plan and actually giving us something to look at that we can actually discuss. I know it's gone through a couple iterations and going through city council and all of that stuff. I guess one other question I do have, and I would like to hear from the developers. I get that 62, you can do it. Do you have to? Is there a way that we can lower the density and still make this a viable product and project that's going to give us the commercial that's going to be supported? It gives the residential, and I don't know if you know my background, I'm in real estate. I get it. We need houses. We need houses to sell. I do not have enough for the buyer and the demands is out there. You will have no problem selling your residential component. The problem is the commercial. And if you have empty storefronts sitting in front of, and what happens there? And how does the phasing with the commercial and the residential get developed? Concerns, sorry, hit my mic, that Paul brought up in terms of the access points. Specifically, like I see that you guys have the one where you've got basically a east and a westbound, plus you have the entrance coming in. I'm assuming that far west entrance that's on the concept plan is also going to be one inbound lane and one outbound lane, correct? Is that outbound lane going to be a right turn only? Or will that be a right or a left turn? Is that something that's been thought about?
Commissioner Walton,
Yeah.
a lot of these questions don't apply to what's before us.
For the rezone?
Yeah, we're not reviewing a plan. We're considering a rezone, and I understand the concerns for those things, but I don't think that applies for what's before us.
No, I understand, and I can certainly feel the same way. Like what's in front of us is the rezone, but I also think the percentages of the zones on the parcel would have an impact on what could come later.
It does.
So I think, Sherry, you made the comment in your executive summary to say that, this doesn't preclude us from having the kind of conversation that we're having now. And so I think that's, Commissioner Boatright, if you're okay with it, I feel like we can at least entertain a portion of it. But I agree. I don't think we need to get into the level of detail that would come later in a preliminary plat.
And I'll say for the record, I'm not expecting all of the
Appreciate
answers right now. I just kind of want to know, at least in the general idea, what you guys are thinking and intentions, especially because in the application, the way the phasing was worded, if 3 ends up getting developed before 1 and 2, which is how it's stated in there, that's a concern. I'd kind of obviously the phasing is supposed to make sense.
Well, and there are certain things that you can bring up that you want staff to address with the developer in the development agreement.
Okay.
The phasing of it, make sure, and there are things that you can, make sure that Brandon addresses like the access and make sure that like if it is a right and left turn, there are things that you can like direct staff to address like in the sketch and things like that without getting into the weeds of the details at this point.
Okay,
So I think if that's the desires,
that's fine.
look into that as the
Yeah,
details
we'll make
emerge.
sure to do that.
Okay, Commissioner Boatright? Sorry, Commissioner Losi, did you have any other comment?
No, I think that was everything.
Commissioner Boatright, do you have any additional comments?
No, I appreciate what's been said. I do appreciate the concerns, and I apologize if it felt like I was cutting Commissioner Losi off. I apologize for that. I do think the developer has showed quite a bit of good faith in going before the city council, I believe several times. I do understand the opinions of some of our residents, but also I understand and respect the rights of the property owner. I mean, if the group of residents really wants to keep this agricultural, then they have an opportunity to purchase the property. I think it's for sale. But given what's before us, I with Commissioner Davis, or like Commissioner Davis, am open to this. I like their concept plan. I appreciate they brought a concept plan. In our previous discussion about this last year, I liked what they talked about and kind of the vision they had. I do understand the concern about the high density, but I can also understand why they want to go high density, because now is the time to build high density because there's such a shortage of homes. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
If I may just add one more thing, and Sharon, I'm not sure about the official process here, but my one thing that I'd like to add to staff and maybe just to staff is if this gets approved by the commission, how do we add, like, we would like the city council to consider XYZ to that approval?
So just throwing this out there, not saying you have to go this way. If one of the commissioners is motioning to recommend the city council approve it, you could say, I make a motion that we recommend the city council grant the rezone on this property, subject to the following conditions. And then you list those 2 or 7 or however many things there are. You list those as part of the motion if there are specific things that you want the city council to consider.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I did actually have one other thing, and it was just tapping into what I had mentioned about the density. I get it. Our highest density in the city is the R7.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to maybe entertain the possibility of a lower density for a portion of the development?
That's what you like.
Am I allowed to
Yeah,
ask direct questions?
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, just like to be at the mic, so. Yeah, great question. So we've actually done a lot of deep digging into how to make this work, so that the city likes what's going to be built, but also that we can actually afford to build it, right? It's kind of that fine line. So we have with city council several times, they beat us up pretty bad on, we were going to do an apartment building. We got rid of that. We were going to do more commercial. We reduced that. So we feel like this mix, we can deliver on, and we can deliver at a high quality of construction, with this amount of townhome units. I think, going any less than this, and we start to run into a little bit of risk when it comes to what are we going to be able to build, and when and how, and what it's going to look like. That's just the honest answer. So I think.
Are these all townhomes, 2-story townhomes? Are any of them single levels?
They're all 2-story.
All 2-story? Okay.
All 2-car garage with a 2-car driveway. So that's the great thing, is that the parking.
All the
ratio is
parking's contained.
way higher than what the zone requires.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
So I just want to echo a lot of what's already been said. I won't belabor the point. I think given the back and forth that this developer's gone through with the city council and the recommendations and analysis coming from the city staff, it seems like it's the pretty clear decision in front of us tonight. I think the only thing that I would like to add well, two things, as a concern over the traffic flow and how that interacts with Highmark Charter
Mhm.
School. I feel like that is going to be a really difficult thing to try to mitigate, manage, what have you. So that would be part of recommendation that I would make. The other item that I'm concerned about is, and this is at no fault of the developer, more so of our process, but as we've approved rezones in the past, those rezones have come back in the form of a different development proposal. And I don't feel like that has been the intent of how we want to do business currently. So, I'd like to maybe look into, if for whatever reason the development doesn't occur, what can the city do to have like a reverter back to the original zoning and not, have that move with the land so much? And I know we've discussed that in the past.
A reverter clause can be put in that if the development doesn't get approved,
Okay.
the
rezone request goes back to the original
Zoning. was-
zoning.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's something that we've talked with the city attorney about.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, please. Go ahead.
You can,
Yeah, and we actually talked about that as well.
yeah, we've
with
talked about that with these
and
guys
with the
too.
city manager as well. So
Mhm.
with David, so the family's in favor of agreeing to a rescind clause, which is definitely protects the city a little bit more than
Mhm.
the landowner, right? But they're willing to do that.
Okay.
That way, there's this if this plan and this permit doesn't get pulled, to go back to agricultural. So
Yeah.
Great.
thank you.
Thanks. So if there's no other additional comments or questions from the commission, is anybody brave enough to try to pull all that together in a motion?
I'll try it since I haven't done one yet.
All right, I like it.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Crack your knuckles.
Yeah, all right. I'd like to motion that we send, actually, I already screwed it up here. I'd like to motion that we send a recommendation to approve the rezone request of 2.78 acres from A to CH and 8.85 acres from A to R7 for South Weaver Gateway located at approximately 2310 East South Weaver Drive, with the applicant Brad Brown of Colors International, and include in our recommendation. Just stop me. I'm looking at your eyeballs here, so let's make sure
I'm watching.
we got okay. And improving that and including that recommendation, the rescind
Clause.
clause,
Mhm.
reverter clause. And then you had one as well
Yeah, just traffic flow and interface with Highmark.
with looking at the traffic flow and obviously take consideration the overall traffic from Highmark
And along South Weaver Drive.
and along South Weaver Drive.
Yeah.
There we go.
No, great.
Not too bad. Yes.
Good job.
I just took a couple other notes. I don't know if any of the other planning commissioners want this on there or not, but entertain a lower density. I don't know if that's something that you want the city council to look at as well.
I do.
Okay, and then Wes, did you have anything that you wanted to have in there as part of an overall percentage?
I would like to
City council look
see,
at?
it's not part of the motion, but I would like to see the city council and the planning commission come up with a standard of what we're going to say for mixed use residential business on these type of properties.
Okay.
That's not part of the motion, though.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's the thing. When a commissioner makes a motion, if people want to tack stuff on, they have to make
Amend.
motions to.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I'll make a motion to amend the motion.
Hold on, did somebody has to second Jeremy's motion for Commissioner Davis's motion before?
I'll
you can
second
make a
that.
motion to amend?
Okay. Please,
Gary
Commissioner.
seconded it.
Okay. So to amend the motion, we like to also have the city council look at the overall, no, we did the traffic flows. So look at the overall density of residential on the property. And also, did I get it? You didn't want yours part of the motion, right? Okay. So that's the amendment.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Boatright. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Sorry, you have to do a vote on the amendment first, and then you do a
Okay.
vote on the amended. I'm sorry,
No, you're
I'll
good.
put
You're
together
fine.
a training on
No,
how
no,
to
no.
do this.
No need. It's just,
You have to vote on the amendment first, and then
Right.
you vote on the amendment.
okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So we're voting on the amendment, even though there
Yes.
was a second on the amendment.
Gary seconded the amendment.
There was another amendment besides the one that you did?
Nope, just the one.
Okay, so vote on that amendment first.
Vote on what I said first and then vote on, and then what.
This isn't making
Nope,
sense.
you vote on the amendment first,
Amendment
and then you vote on the fully amended motion.
Would you like to start over?
It's government. Nothing makes sense.
We're good. Don't start over. Do this.
Good old Robert Rules of Order.
All right. So we're going to vote, just so I'm clear, we're voting on the first.
We're
Gosh.
voting on what you added to what. I
Yeah,
said.
Okay, all right.
vote on what you added.
Okay, okay, so we're voting on the amendment.
Right.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Davis? Commissioner Losi?
Aye.
Commissioner Boatright?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Now, we're going to,
Now you're
Right.
voting on the amended motion. What Jeremy said
Okay.
with what you said tacked on.
Is the
okay,
reason.
copy. All right. We've never done this at all.
I know it gets, just be glad there's only one amendment on it.
Okay, copy. All right, so we'll do a roll call vote on the overall motion with amendment. Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Losi?
Aye.
Commissioner Boatright?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well.
Do I have to call it? It's an aye with the amendment, amended? Anyways, we're good. We're good.
Next time, just amend your motion, Jeremy, yourself. and it will-
Yeah,
Lesson
and we
learned.
will. We'll do a training on this because it gets weird and messy and complicated and confusing even at the best of times.
All right. Okay, thank you. So moving on to our next agenda item, which is an action on rezone request of 18.079 acres from agricultural and commercial highway to commercial highway for Stevens exit located at northeast corner of 475 East and 6650 South by applicant Carter Randall of C&M Property Holdings LLC. Sherry?
Yeah, did you not get my response?
Can you get mine?
Oh, okay. Just a couple things. I want to address what that Brandon was gonna like steal the floor and do a dance
Yeah.
number. I want to address what Paul brought up in his earlier. This is just a discussion item. The public hearing on this, and part of the confusion is, I will admit, is my fault. I gave the commission the same memo with a little bit of addition from the last meeting, but I didn't change the agenda item.
To show it as a
It
public
should
hearing.
have just said Stevens property rezone request. The public hearing was held at the May Planning Commission meeting. So even if an item that you have a public hearing on, even if that item is continued or tabled, the public hearing is still valid. The public hearing is held the first time the project formally comes before the commission, which is why on the other two rezone requests, there was a public hearing and not on this one. So I apologize for any confusion because I didn't take that portion off the memo. This is just the commission considering the rezone request. Public hearing was held last time. The commission at that time opted to table this request until the city council adopted the land use matrix, which they did at their May 25th meeting. My comments on this, on the project overall, haven't changed since our meeting in May. If you'd like, excuse me, I can restate those for the record this time. I don't have a lot to say about this, largely because the developer hasn't provided us with a concept. And it's the same conversation that we just had. about it's not required, but the council and commission have requested it before. This is one of the other properties that in the general plan calls out that there would be a development plan and agreement in place. So the future land use map, to that extent, this request is compliant with the general plan because they have requested commercial highway, which is what the general plan anticipates on the future land use project. Again, the commission has the same options as the previous request available to them. Again, this is a legislative issue. But like I said, I don't have a lot to say about this because there's not a concept that's been provided. But to the extent that it's possible at this point to comply with the general plan, it does, because the general plan, like I said, anticipates commercial highway, and that's what they're requesting. But beyond that, I don't have any comments because I don't know what they're intending to do.
Is there someone from the developer side that would like to provide any additional commentary or?
How are you? I'm Carter Randall. So yeah, back from our last meeting, we were trying to just establish what the zoning matrix was so that we'd actually could get the vested uses that were inside of that matrix and then try to find those users in order to generate an actual plan for the property. So the reason there's not a concept plan is because we don't have a zone. So we didn't, that feels like the cart before the horse. So we were just trying to get the zone done so we could have the uses, so we could go find the users in order to meet the zone that now that you're happy with the vested uses inside that commercial highway zone. That makes sense?
Yeah, I'll open it up to the rest of the commission if there's questions at this point.
I don't have any questions except it's comments more. So obviously, first of all, thank you for waiting for the process of getting that CH zone through our code committee and, all of those designated uses and our land use. Like, I know that's what you guys are waiting on. I'll be very brief. You now know what's allowed in the CH zone. Now that you want to, obviously change from agricultural to CH zone, I'd like to see a concept plan. Because right now there are a lot of uses within that commercial highway zone that could fit in, and you've got a very large parcel. I mean, 18.079 acres. I think it's the largest potentially commercial highway zone that we have in the city. There's a lot that can go into that. And so without having an idea of what you're thinking that is permitted within that CH zone, I can't really say yes or no to the rezone request. I'm more of a no because I don't know what you want to put on there. There was things that were in that CH zone that are conditional, but there's also a lot that's it's an approved use. So which way are you leaning? I don't know.
Well, if it's conditional, I'd have to come back and get approval, correct?
Conditional is still an approved use. There's just conditions, correct, that are put in place, but it's still an approved use.
And could still be denied?
I don't think we can deny it.
Here's the thing with conditional uses. You're correct. It is an approved use. Conditional uses are uses that the city identifies as having potentially detrimental impacts. If those detrimental impacts can be reasonably mitigated, then it is an approved use. The only time the city can deny a conditional use is when the detrimental impact is so broad in its scope and impact that it can't be reasonably mitigated. One other thing is we're discussing about uses and concepts. Concept plans don't have the end user on there for commercial spaces. It's just a general layout. A lot of times those uses will factor in to how they lay out their concept, but they're not, a concept doesn't require them to have the end users identified.
No,
So
but
I just wanted to clarify
for
that.
example, and I know hotel has been something that has been discussed. Storage units have been something that's been discussed. A gas station is something that's been discussed. And I believe all of those are permitted uses within the CH zone. How do you see that land, those 18 acres being laid out? Is that correct?
I think those are actually conditional uses inside the zone.
I don't know if there's a way to pull up what the CH zone actually,
A hotel is
As-
a condition.
it's a conditional. Okay,
Storage units aren't even a use, is that
I
correct?
don't think.
within
they
the
were.
commercial
Storage
highway.
units would not be.
Okay.
Correct.
And I apologize, I don't have the actual zone
I
pulled up.
actually have it in front of me, the version the city council approved.
I couldn't really tell you at the moment exactly how it's going to be developed. And then now you're correct, now that at least the permitted uses are available, the concern that we would have, having gone down this road, is if we were to go find permitted uses for commercial highway, and for some reason you didn't like those uses, even though they fell inside the zone as permitted, we could still be denied, could we not? For the zone change?
Probably we
My
could.
understanding, if it's a permitted use,
But it's not permitted because it's zoned agricultural, correct?
well, for the zone change,
For the zone change. So,
for the
so if
commercial highway.
that's my concern, is if I walk back in here with a master plan and we go through all the rigmarole and you don't like it, then you hold out on the zone and I'm stuck again. So what I'm trying to do is establish an actual use that, so I'm not beholden to public comment as to whether it's an ice cream shop or a shake shop or
All of that. And I do understand it fits within the general plan, how this lot has been designated. It's not going outside of those designations.
I mean, we're not asking for high density. I'm just asking for a use that I can actually go shop. So I can go find the users so that I can see if I can even, and it is 18 acres. So it would be handy to have it all drawn up in such a way to, for planning and zoning and traffic and everything like that. I totally get all that. It's just, it's a lot of effort to go try to fill 18 acres as a master plan without being confident that the uses or the users that you're bringing in are going to be acceptable.
May I ask a question?
Certainly. Go ahead, Commissioner Boatright.
So how long of time do you need to do that? I mean, would you, and I'm going to ask you another question before you answer that. Would you be open to, if it took you longer than expected for the zone to revert back to agricultural? So, because I don't think anyone on the commission has a problem about it being rezoned, because that's what's in the general plan. That's what we're planning on. I think the question or the concern that Commissioner Losi expressed and that I share with her is, we just like to have a general idea of really what you're thinking.
I'll be honest, how that's all going to lay out, whether there's fuel, whether there was a hotel. I mean, what I'm looking forward, if at a minimum, out of this meeting, to feel like if I go and get those uses that you have laid out as conditional or approved, that I can walk back in here with a plan and have an honest discussion as to how that plan should proceed and how you want to see the roads laid out and things of that nature. But I just, that's all we've been trying to get, is some clarification that those uses are going to be acceptable based under your code. And so that's what we're trying to do, is establish the code. How long it's going to take for 18 acres it would have to be phased. It would take a long time to try to put that in there and have it developed.
Well, the code's established now. I mean, you just said you were waiting for the code. The code's established. It's in there. You know what's permitted in there. You know what things would need a conditional use.
So that would come back to my question. And so why wouldn't we approve the change of zone, since we know that's what the zone's going to be?
So if I may, Commissioner Boatright, I feel like
Please.
The conversation at this point is not so much the one that we need to have with the developer as it is how comfortable are we with the code that we just approved. If those are the uses that we feel best fit in that area per the general plan, then the developer does have that opportunity to come in and make an application for a rezone under that ordinance. And we will have our opportunity to meet with the developer on any conditional uses or the preliminary plan approval and all those items to discuss those details further. So
good point.
And I will say too, like, just to speak to some of the concerns that you've expressed, when we talk about a concept plan, again, we're not talking about, and there's so minimal that's required in a concept plan. It's okay, we're gonna have some kind of a commercial building here, we're gonna have some kind of a commercial building here. This is where we anticipate a road going in. It's not end users, it's not, this is gonna be a gas station, this is gonna be a hospital. This is our first crack at how we think the project may lay out, and this is maybe about the amount of commercial that we're shooting for. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I feel like some of the uses and stuff like that are getting tangled up a little bit in the discussion, but that's what, I mean, the concept isn't looking at, again, what I said before, so I won't repeat it. I talk too much.
And I can sense the frustration on members of the commission that we just need to clearly identify what the expectation is on a rezone. And right now, that's not a burden that we're going to put on the conversation with the developer tonight. But definitely, I feel like when we are reviewing code, I think we have room to make this easier on everybody. So those are my 2 cents. But anyway, Commissioner Boatwright, did you have any other comments?
No, I appreciate your comments and Sherry's comments. So thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson?
I would like to see the rezone go through on this. Then we can have a concept plan to look at and be able to say yay or nay to the concept plan or make suggestions as to changes to it. And until we do have it rezoned to commercial, we won't get the concept plan. So I think the rezoning is a good idea.
Commissioner Davis?
No further comments.
Okay. Great. I'm kind of in the same boat. I feel like at this point we need to be able to move forward on a parcel that we've zoned in our general, or that we've planned for in our general plan to be a commercial highway, and this is just the next step, in my opinion. So with that said, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to forward a action of approval to the city council for the rezone request of the 18.079 acres from agricultural to commercial, agriculture and commercial to commercial highway for Stevens exit located at northeast corner of 475 East and 6650 South. Applicant Carter Randall of CNN Property Holdings LLC.
And
I'll
that's
second.
recommending approval.
Recommending. Can we add to that, though, that when they come before city council, that they at least have a general concept plan with the permitted uses in the CH zone for city council's benefit?
That's up to the
Is
council.
that
to decide.
muddying the waters, or is that up to the council to
That's up
then?
to the council to decide.
Okay. Okay.
I second.
Okay. Do a roll call vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Losi?
Aye.
Commissioner Boatwright?
Aye.
I am an aye as well. So thank you. All right, moving on. We'll move to agenda item number 8, which is Planning Commission bylaws.
Finally.
The
Sorry.
fun starts, right?
That for the record.
All right, so Sherry, do you want to lead out on this one?
I don't know that there's anything else to say on this.
Yeah.
I think you all have done an outstanding job of getting these to a point where I think these are in a good place. I think you guys have got them to a really good point. I do think that there is the one thing to add that I mentioned before.
The motions.
Under the section on motions, just so that there's clarity that the chair of the meeting is the one to call for the motion. That's frequently something that I've seen a lot of different commissions and commissioners get a little bit hung up on, but I believe it would be appropriate to just formally, I guess, write out that the chair calls for a motion.
Okay.
Agree. And I like the fact it does say that this, obviously, if there's something that comes up after the incorporation of the bylaws, that we still have the ability to go back and amend, add.
Yep.
So I'm fine with how they read. There's a lot of work that went into these.
So I would like to add one thing, or at least bring it up for discussion. I know we had this in our training with Jamie and Sherry back in March, but with the way technology is now, I think we need to be careful not to have discussions in the meeting that's outside of the meeting, like texting, messaging, emailing. I think we ought to, just for transparency's sake, say that we will not do that during a meeting.
Unless you're like me during my first planning commission meeting, and the only way I could communicate was via text.
Well, but
There needs to be that level of understanding. We do our best.
well, but that you were chatting through Zoom, and I was
Yeah.
reading your chats. So,
But it was text first to be like, Julie, where are you? We can't hear you. So I agree with the intent, and I do think because we are conducting public for the public benefit, it needs to be an
because I
understanding.
know I have received text from the public during meetings before, and the discussion needs to take place publicly. So
I agree.
That's the only thing I would add. Other than that, I think they're in a great place, and especially with with a recommendation Sherry had. So
do you have an idea where you might want to put something like
What
that?
section?
I'm just looking it over. Would it be meetings or would it be?
let's see here. I did look at that, but I didn't take a note of where that should be.
I think a good place, there's a couple different places that I think it could go. I think probably the best place would be rights and duties, under rights and duties of the commissioner, because that's sort of where you talk about like your conduct.
I would agree, Sherry. I think that's a good spot for it.
It could be a section under, like, you could title it and like no ex parte communication. And then just say like commissioners shall refrain from texting, emailing, or otherwise discussing business of the city during planning commission meetings. So yeah, I think that would be a good place to put it.
To the very best of their abilities. To the very best of their abilities.
Well, there's a difference between trying to get technology online. What you did would not in
insane.
any way, shape, or form be like.
No.
The other stuff that happens actually puts the city in a position of violating the Open and Public Meetings Act.
Yes. And we don't want to do that.
Okay. Sherry, quick comment on section F under voting. Isn't there a ability to, whenever the vote comes up, just to say present? In other words, you're not voting for it or against it, and you're not abstaining. You're just saying you're present.
That's a vote against it. If you're present in the meeting and you don't abstain from it, you're either voting for it or against it.
Okay. All right.
And would the only reason for an abstaining vote be a conflict of interest?
Yeah.
Okay.
On top of page 57, there, cheering, clapping, throwing objects, obscene gestures, harassing comments, and other similar or obnoxious behavior shall not be tolerated. The copy I downloaded this afternoon has that on the top, page 57.
Oh, let's see.
Oh, yeah.
New? Is that what you're saying? That wasn't in. our
It's just
previous-
like a carryover paragraph that doesn't
carry over.
It doesn't
from
carry
anywhere.
over from page 56.
You know what? Well, I'll take that out. I had honestly not ever. I mean, I think it's a good,
I was gonna say, that's a
tool to
really
have.
exciting
somewhere?
paragraph.
I don't think so.
And it makes sense, is the thing.
Yeah.
Not for like removal of somebody from a meeting.
Yeah, it
By
seems
the
like it would fit
commissioner.
there. Where was that? I think it was under the chair's authority where it talks about, one of the last sentences.
Oh, yep. You know what? It looks like that needs to be moved down there.
Okay, good catch.
I
think it
mean, it's a
works.
good standalone
Yeah,
sentence.
why
but-
not put it in the header?
I
of
just
every
read it and thought it
document?
was part of it. I'm like, yep, that's right. We agree.
Yeah. I can make those technical changes. That doesn't stop the commit from approving these.
Adopting the
You
bylaw.
can
Okay.
you can still make a motion to approve it with the changes as discussed.
Sounds good. Commissioner Davis, did you have anything else that you saw?
No, I'm good.
Couldn't recall. Okay. Just one thing that I had that came up tonight, and I don't know if this is something that we want to even consider in our bylaws, but it was the difference between public comment and then a public hearing. And I know not every single time are we going to have a public hearing on the agenda items, but it just seems like a lot of duplicative conversation. And I'm wondering if there's a way that maybe we streamline that a bit so that we have a little bit more efficient meeting.
There's a couple different things that you can do. One of the things you can do that's actually really simple is on the agenda, and this is kind of up to the chair to, for lack of a better term, enforce. On the agenda, when it talks about the public comment period, you can add another thing on there, another bullet point on there that said, the public comment period is to be limited to those items which are not subject to public hearing.
Okay.
And then it's up to the chair, like I said, for lack of a better term, to enforce, control, whatever.
And I think that makes sense. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels, Commissioner Boatwright, if you feel like maybe adding a bullet to the agenda would be appropriate.
I really like that.
Yeah, will you just add another bullet point to clarify that?
Yeah, we rephrase that?
Yeah. Sometimes I'm good at thinking of words off the top of my head.
It's okay. This actually wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be. With all the public. So,
It's game 2. It's gone long enough.
Gary, how we doing? Your dinner's getting cold.
It is getting really cold, and
All
I
right.
have an appointment to go hike Independence Rock. So
Man, dinner and a hike. Throwing that in our face.
So was there
We need to do
All
a
right.
motion to approve that?
Yeah.
motion to approve the planning commission?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the planning commission bylaws with the discussion, the changes that were just discussed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Everybody seconds.
Commissioner Johnson seconded. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Thank you. Okay, any additional planning commissioner comments? Commissioner Boatwright?
just thank you, Commissioner Walton, for chairing tonight. I didn't think it would be fair for me to try to chair electronically. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
No problem. No problem. Commissioner Davis?
The only thing I had was, and this came up a lot today, so I don't know if we need to make a decision or whatever today, but you know, somehow spend some time to possibly update the code to enforce the use of a concept plan more liberally. I guess that's the best way to say it. Because I think there were two instances where we really wanted one, and one where it's like, well, we'll rezone it and then we'll get one.
Yeah.
But just, you know, discuss that in code committee on if that makes sense.
Yep.
Or maybe if
Perkins
there's
is, yep.
instances where that makes sense more than others. I think that would be nice to do that.
Commissioner Walton, do you want to bring that up on Tuesday?
Certainly.
Okay.
Taking the note now. I agree. We need to look at that.
That's all I got.
Okay, Commissioner Losi?
I agree with what Jeremy said. It helps the discussion. It was really frustrating tonight because they could be thinking of so many different things. So the only other thing is public comment. I know we're still kind of in this weird transition where we're still, you know, making public comment available via email before the meeting up to a certain amount of time frame. But then we're also having public comment that's received here and just trying to make sure that as commissioners, we're getting all of the public comment with sufficient time. And I know there's a lot going on, whether it be jobs, whether it be, you know, traveling, we may not get it. So I don't know if it's fair to establish a time frame for when it has to be received by. Otherwise, I don't know.
We tried.
Okay.
What I do the next day is if there's multiples, I'll combine them together and post them under citizen input on the website.
On the
So
website,
I'll-
okay.
Well, I mean, I think what she's speaking to is because sometimes the public comment will bring up things that the commissioners should address. So like setting a deadline before the meeting that.
Like, we
people
need it
have
by
to-
this, because I know we've had it, what, 5 PM was the deadline, and then obviously the meeting starts at 6
Right.
o'clock. But that's an hour. That's not really
Right.
sufficient time to really, if a citizen brings up something
Uh-huh.
that, well, can I really look into it? And can I look into what their concern is? And how do I bring that up for the discussion or
Yeah.
whatever it is?
Exactly. I see what you're going. Well, let me think of something.
Okay.
I'll see what I can come up with.
I don't know what kind of emails come into that account, but if there's a way that it is just a simple rule within Microsoft to forward it to the planning commission.
It
I know
it
those can be
does
set
to the
up.
city council. So I get them
Okay.
actually twice. I get them for city council and then Kim actually sends them.
Sends
So
them
it's easy to set up and it's already available. So
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a
Well,
simple.
because I'll even notice with the email that was sent in by Brent Paul from May's meeting, it actually was still going to Tim Grubb. It was still it was going to commission members who
yeah.
are no longer
I think
commission
that
members.
was him putting the ad.
Possibly.
Yeah.
he will add several.
He'll just add anybody.
All right.
I want people to listen. So that was it. That was it for me.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
The only thing I'd like to see is on the matrix, if we can get that on one page, 8.5 by 11 versus strung out. A final copy of the matrix.
Get a bigger printer.
I'm happy to forward it to you and you can print it off. We'll try and get it in a little bit better format.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I didn't have anything else to share, so I look for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
So you can even go on a walk.
All
Get
in
out of here,
favor?
Gary.